quite frankly, I think assisted living is one of the most complex and confusing things that we have created. Different buildings provide different types of care, different levels, different pricing. It is very confusing. And so families don't understand necessarily why something is done this way in this building, but differently in a different building or in a different state. So helping in an appropriate way with some education and agreeing if something doesn't quite make sense, but this is what we have found works best, is really helpful. Because again, this whole situation is very confusing, especially as we're stepping freshly into it.
Tips from Trestle is brought to you by Wiseox AI and Benny Keith Foods. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Welcome into another episode of Tips from Trestle. Today's guest knows firsthand what it feels like to be in the trenches of family caregiving, the emotional overwhelm, the impossible decisions, and the moments of crying in your car. Michele Magner is a certified dementia practitioner, a certified John Maxwell team coach, and holds a master's certification in gerontology. As the founder of Inspired Caring, she's turned her personal experience caring for both of her grandmothers and in-laws through dementia, cancer, and senior living transitions into a mission, helping family caregivers feel calm, clear, and confident. She's not just a coach, she's someone who's been through it and made it to the other side. In this conversation that we recorded in January during the Cocktails and Conversations event, we're digging into the strategies, stories, and insights that will help your team diffuse tension and strengthen family communication. So let's get into it in this conversation with Michele Magner. Michele, give us a quick kind of background on your history, how you came into doing what you're doing, and then at the end, we'll give you an opportunity to tell us all about Inspired Caring and how we can connect and follow you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Michele Magner, and I have been a family caregiver to 5 different family members in various roles, 2 of whom I was the primary family caregiver for. And then I've worked in senior living for 8 years. And over the course of my many years in leadership positions within senior living, obviously I had the opportunity to work with our wonderful residents, the families, and the team, and the community. So Inspired Caring was born just from that background and experience. I am 10 credit units away from moving forward with my dissertation for my PhD. And obviously on LinkedIn, there's other backgrounds and bits and pieces that have fit into this formula. But really supporting families is something that I feel very passionately about. I think our older adults are moving through this care ecosystem that we have and that we're working to continue to build out. But I really saw a void in who was supporting the families through each phase. And so that's where Inspired Caring came from.
So, given your experience and the work you've done, you've encountered more than a couple agitated family members, both from your time as a senior living professional, but also in what you do now, and probably also as having been potentially one of those agitated family members. So I think you bring this very 360 view of this topic of how we can work with, and dealing with is probably a little bit aggressive, but how can we support, maybe is a better way, support and work with agitated family members. So in that vein,
I'd love to start by just talking about when a new resident moves into senior living, what you have seen and what are some of the emotional and situational realities that the families are bringing with them, and how do all of the confusion, which is a word you use as we were planning, about who does what, how that kind of tends to show up.
You're right. I have been on both sides of that desk. The one who is working with and guiding families from within the building. And then also I have been a family member to multiple people who've lived in senior living. And so I do wear both of those hats. And then also as a gerontologist, I'm thinking about the older adults experience as well. And really, our eyes are focused on the care for the older adult. We are on the same team as team members within the building and family members who have made a decision to transition to care being within senior living. I think something that we forget or underestimate is how much time people have put in to care for someone at home. And I think it's organic for us as team members to say, we'll take it from here. They're in good hands. You can go back to being the daughter or the spouse now or the son. And that doesn't just organically happen. Like naturally, we can't just hand over responsibility to someone that for the care of someone that we love to someone else and not be part of it. So I think there needs to be additional attention to integration and what the families have had to go through prior to moving in. Oftentimes there has been a traumatic experience that they have all had. Maybe it was a hospital stay or something that happened at home, and we just reached those tipping points with our loved ones at home when we realized it's no longer working for us to be caring for them at home. The trauma of what they have gone through prior to coming to the building is something that I think is important to just recognize and be aware of. Also, families do not agree. Despite, I hope, people's best effort at preparation and planning and sharing their wishes with their family members, siblings do not, or spouses do not often agree on when it's appropriate or time for someone to make that move. So prior to someone being moving into the building, there's probably been discord about where that building should be located, who would the person be living by, what was the right timing on the move. There's a big difference between being prepared for something and actually ready for something. Prepared and ready are different things. So we've made promises and we need to be making plans, not promises. And family members are coming to the building feeling like they have failed to a certain degree and they're feeling really guilty. So we are in a very emotional business at a very fragile time for a lot of families. And also, we have natural rhythms within our building, and we are very accustomed to how the days go and what happens at different times. So just handing someone an activity calendar, while it's informative, is not always helpful because it's hard to know for families to know what types of activities our loved one is going to engage in. So just remember that everything for the family member is unfamiliar. We're accustomed to it, but for the family members, they are just feeling very out of sorts.
Yeah. And I think a key to that is how do we start to build a bridge over those like gaps and that concern and those fears is building trust.
Wow.
And so when you think about how we have to build trust, you introduced this concept to me that I think I'd heard before, but it never really clicked until we really talked about this. But trust is building like a marble jar. And so I want to what you talk a little bit about the marble jar, but also talk to us about how small moments throughout the day, building or breaking trust with these family members can really help or hurt people's feelings of in control or out of control.
And the marble jar trust concept is from Brené Brown, and she talks about it in her TED Talk, The Anatomy of Trust, or maybe it was a Super Soul Sunday. And she talks about how trust is built, and research has demonstrated that trust is built through really small moments over time. So when families are coming in hot with the problem or situation, there's a chance that some trust either hasn't been built up initially, so that there's not enough marbles in the jar for something to have happened and a family to feel calm about it when they're approaching a team member. And the chances are that there's a lot of opportunity for us to create those little moments of trust. And those can be things like when someone comes to visit, sharing something that occurred earlier in the day with their loved one that they weren't there for. Really, these like small nuanced ways that we demonstrate that we actually really know and care about the person that they care about are little tiny ways to build trust. The other thing that is just confusing for families, and why would they have to know this, is that sometimes there are things that are building-related processes. Sometimes they are company-related policies, or sometimes issues are around state or federal regulations. Families don't understand the difference between those three things. So some of the things that we're doing in the building may feel confusing because, quite frankly, I think assisted living is one of the most complex and confusing things that we have created. The ecosystem, different buildings provide different types of care, different levels, different pricing. It is very confusing. And so families don't understand necessarily why something is done this way in this building, but differently in a different building or in a different state. So helping in an appropriate way with some education and agreeing with something doesn't quite make sense, but this is what we have found works best, is really helpful. Because again, this whole situation is very confusing, especially as we're stepping freshly into it.
So let's think about the team in the community, right? Because they're the ones, good or bad, or have to deal with these family members, right? They're the ones putting the marbles in the jar. They're the ones that are going to be the frontline people taking the brunt of what's coming from the families. And so what have you seen from your 360 perspective of this are the main struggles that shape how staff respond, especially when families are upset, because that's what we're talking about here. And the famous phrase, we're short-staffed, it tends to come up here. So why is that not helpful? And what can they look to do to maybe actually answer these questions or approach these struggles?
For over a century, Benny Keith has been a trusted leader in the food service industry. As a broadline distributor, we offer an extensive selection of products, delivering to 21 states through 10 distribution centers. We can help you create a thriving culinary culture by pairing quality products with customized solutions that elevate your residents' dining experience. Our team of registered dietitians provide unmatched customer service by modifying menus, selecting recipes, ensuring regulatory compliance, and more. Quality, value, and service are at the heart of everything we do. Benny Keith Foods puts the care back in healthcare.
I love this question. And I think just starting from the baseline of what are the expectations of care, and are those things being clear? Are we communicating, and are we following through with care and how we're talking to family members? You're right. It is very cringy to me to say dealing with negative families. I was on the family satisfaction committee, the team satisfaction committee, and the resident satisfaction committee in one of my buildings for multiple years. And it just felt consistently like our common denominators came back to communication and follow through. And the little marbles in the marble jar, I think sometimes for our team, they don't know if they have autonomy to solve a problem or make a decision, and they may not have authority to solve a problem or make a decision. And they may feel like they are rushing through the day and short on time. What I feel like we all know in senior living is we're going to be investing time on the front end or back end of something. So either we are going to strive to have a more calm approach on the front end, or we're going to be picking up the pieces on the back end. So when we think about team members, I think it's just really important for us to look at what are the problems that are reoccurring in the building, and is there space to give a little bit more authority back to the people who are in the direct care line.
No, I love that. And it's invaluable when we think about trying to see it from the family's perspective. It's really hard for the staff. And with all the things they're juggling, it's not something that's front of mind for sure. So when a family does bring a concern forward, would you walk us through the overall approach that you've seen that you would recommend that would help us be successful from that first interaction all the way through resolving the issue? I think that could be helpful for our teams in the communities.
Absolutely. And I've said this several times, but this is our reminder that we are in the business of emotions. This is a very fragile time in people's lives, and they're watching someone that they have had in their life forever decline and age, and they're watching disease processes continue. And sometimes as team members, we know that a situation or issue is the result of a disease process progression. So I think the very first baseline thing is to just stop what you're doing and make eye contact with the person who has brought something to your attention, and be very present with them in that moment. That person is needing to be seen and heard. And that's not unlike any of us in any other situation. If I'm going to Kohl's to return something, I want someone to stop and look up and just an awareness, like I am standing in front of you. So the very first thing is to do that, be present with that person. If it's appropriate and depending on what the situation is, maybe it feels okay to gently touch someone's elbow, just ground in that we're connected. We're in this together. We're on the same team to help someone. I think acknowledging and empathizing is really important because, again, we may know why something has happened the way it has, but the family may not know. So just acknowledging, first of all, if there was a situation with the resident, is the resident okay? Like, how's your mom? Again, that's our common goal, is to take care of this older adult. So checking in with them, is your mom okay? How's your mom? And then acknowledge that's upsetting. We're acknowledging that the person in front of us is upset. If I come in hot with my husband with a situation, I don't want him just launching into the 10 fixes he's going to do. I want him to acknowledge that I said something and that I am upset. And I think one of the things that I'll just speak for myself, have learned to do over time is to just offer a genuine apology. That doesn't mean that I am taking blame for the situation specifically. I think it is hard not to take things personally when someone is upset and talking to you about it. But offer a genuine apology. We do this with dementia care as a best practice. If someone is in an activated state, we want to help calm their nervous system. We're acknowledging them and offering them an apology. And then move quickly to a solution. And that goes back to, in your building, do people have the ability to solve problems? Or does everything have to get funneled through higher leadership? And just making sure we're having those open conversations with the team member, because our goal is trust has been broken. And so we're working and striving to reestablish trust again with that family member. And then follow through, Erin. I think that so often as a family member, I would walk out of the building thinking, I'm not sure it's going to happen. whatever it is. I don't know. Like, I want to be optimistic and give people the benefit of the doubt. But if there's a quick fix with something, remove the soiled clothes from the room and take it to laundry. Go ahead and empty the trash or refill the water. If there's a quick fix, it goes back to time. It's worth the investment of time to put another marble back in the marble jar with the family.
The one thing that really jumped out at me as you were describing all that was the when you do the apology and the connection, because I know, like, if I'm in a situation where I feel like I have to apologize, I feel like there's a fault, right, on my part, like me personally. And especially when you think about our frontline staff, they're the ones that are in the doing, they're the ones that are in the thick of everything. So if they're dealing with a issue and they've got someone that they're dealing with or talking to, like, being able to apologize and not connect that to their performance or their daily work can be such a huge thing. I think allowing our leaders to create that environment, but also give them permission to say, hey, they're not coming at you because you forgot to remove the salt or you forgot to take out the trash, but someone on the team made a mistake. And so as a team, we're apologizing, and that's what you're doing. So I think making that distinction and talking through that like you did is invaluable for us as we try to create the right culture in our communities for success.
To add on to that, we do not, like, we're in a very finger-pointing society right now, and we want to have our team members' backs. So we are on the same team. You and I, as family members and employees, we're on the same team. And our older adults that we're caring for is our primary focus. It is hard not to take things personally. My third day in my second building, I am the public relations coordinator, and I fielded a phone call from an angry family member. And she lit into me about something that had happened the week prior. And I just apologized profusely that she had that experience. I don't know the facts of the situation. I wasn't in a position to investigate that in that moment. What I needed that family member to hear is that I see you and this is upsetting, and let's work to figure out how we can make this right or make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of wrap up this, we're in an emotional line of work, right? We're dealing with people and loved ones and all of the, I'll just call it baggage that comes with moving a family member into a community. And like you said, like, I can't, I feel like I feel guilty. I feel all of these other emotions about doing this. How would you encourage the leaders listening, the teams in their communities, to remember that the possible root causes, as opposed to other like ancillary issues, while still helping the families feel seen and working on rebuilding that trust, putting those marbles back in?
Yes, I think curiosity is one of, I believe, 3 of the foundational pillars of caregiving, whether we're professional caregivers or family caregivers. So I think it's really important as leadership and team members, and I would encourage direct care team members to be having these conversations too. Like, where are the common denominators? What is consistently happening that people are finding upsetting? Are there certain people or certain times of day where we're having reoccurring situations? And maybe there is a process that needs to be changed. If we get very accustomed to doing the same thing day after day and never get curious about why we do it that way. So there is potentially room for us to invite every level and every department within the building to have some open discussions about what does the process look like throughout the day. And then again, circling back to families, communication is a second pillar, and having a lot more trust through follow through and follow up, and letting families know, hey, you know what, thanks for bringing that to our attention. This is going to be the change that is made as a result of that. And then sometimes there are people that we just will never make happy. It's unfortunate, but I have these people in my life. You may have them in your life, and there's certainly family members that are in the same position. So our goal is to just instill the trust in them, hopefully, that we are doing the best that we can and their loved one is cared for, focusing back on how is your mom? Like, how do you think her days are? How are things going? And giving people an opportunity to communicate in that way.
Yeah, I love that curiosity. Like letting everybody be curious, let everybody have the empowered to be curious, to ask the question without worrying about whatever may come from it. So
There is a third C, and I don't want to leave people hanging because I did mention 1 and 2. And the third pillar, I believe, of caregiving is compassion, and that's having compassion for the people that we are taking care of, the older adults, the people that we're assisting, and then also having compassion for ourselves. And that might be the family member or the team member or the leader, whoever it is. Having compassion, self-compassion is so important. This is a very hard job, and it's a very important job. This is such a critically important work that we're doing. So having some compassion can go a long way.
being mindful of time, Michele, I'd love for you to wrap all this up for everybody. Tell us about Inspired Caring, what you do, how you work in this space with Inspired Caring, and how they can connect with you to learn more about working with these family members.
Perfect. So Inspired Caring, I have written and created 3 online courses. And these courses are packaged together and offered as a membership to senior living communities, senior advisors, anybody who is helping seniors and their families navigate this care ecosystem. So it's a membership that the business is paying for and then offering at no charge to all of their families. And our goal is helping families make better decisions faster and to actually remain calm and feel like they are empowered to move through this journey with their loved one and not constantly being in this sense of overwhelmed and feeling guilty about decisions that are needing to be made and how care is being delivered. We talk a lot about what, where, and when, what care and services are needed, where are we going to be delivering those services, and when does that need to happen? I also have a podcast called Inspired Caring, and that is on all of the major streaming channels. So there's over 200 episodes. There's guest experts from around the country. I also share a lot of my own caregiving experiences through the podcast. And then I also do work privately with families. But the membership is the number one way that businesses can engage with this. And what's amazing that we never talk about, Erin, is how many care team members, direct care workers, are also family caregivers. So they're not just coming to the building and doing an amazing job in caring for people in the building. They're also going home and caring for people as well. So within the membership, the team all have access to the content as well.
Yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms for another conversation. Thank you, Michele, for doing this. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
To have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.